You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Cyberspace, the new frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast First Contact. Its mission? To explore every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. To seek out new viewers and have new conversations. To boldly view what many have viewed before. Welcome to First Contact, the Star Trek The Next Generation introcast. We have reached the last episode of Season 1. I am so happy. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Cheerful.
This week we are looking at The Neutral Zone. It first aired the week of May 16th, 1988. It was written by Maurice Hurley, Deborah McIntyre and Mona Glee, and directed by James L. Conway. James, what is this one all about?
While Picard is at a conference, Data requests permission to investigate an ancient satellite drifting through space. Inside, he finds 3 cryogenically frozen humans from the 20th century Earth. Meanwhile, Picard returns with big news. They're going to the Neutral Zone to investigate the destruction of several outposts. Could it be the Romulans? Find out in the season finale of First Contact.
So, Alex, you've been watching all this season with fresh eyes, having never seen Star Trek The Next Generation before. It's good to restate our premise at the end, because people might have forgotten. What did you think of this episode?
Well, I thought that having gone through a whole season, it's nice to end on a big high note, where there's important high stakes and everything to play for. I just thought it was a shame that happened last episode.
It is a strange one. Genuinely, Conspiracy is the season finale. They are trying to up the stakes here. There is no doubt about that. There's the reintroduction of a classic Trek villain, which has been teased at some point throughout the season. But I suppose it doesn't really compare to all of Starfleet being taken down by an alien conspiracy.
No, and furthermore, their big important plot for the episode with their game changer is the B plot and is quite secondary.
Yeah, I suppose the A plot is that they found cryogenically frozen humans. Now, that sort of idea couldn't work in Star Trek at all, could it?
Well, yeah, I mean, who would have thought? People really like Space Seed and the whole idea of Khan, that interesting character with a dodgy backstory that slowly comes to light. And when I see Space Seed, what it makes me think is I'd really like to see this episode redone, but with a businessman who's a bit of a dick.
It is an unfortunate comparison, but if you're going to do that in an episode of Star Trek, if you're going to have them finding cryopods, then you are going to be compared to Space Seed, which many regard as the best episode of Star Trek, the original series. But I understand why they're doing it. I suppose it's from the audience point of view. Let's compare humans from our era to the humans of the 24th century. Unfortunately, basically, what this episode does is say to the audience, you're all living life wrong.
Yeah, with 3 weird template characters. Although, before we get to that, let's deal with the whole issue of how they find them and why they take them, because that's confused and weird, frankly. So, they've sent this ship out into space. I find that all a bit weird anyway. I get the whole power thing, but if this is meant to be the 20th century, or even if it's the early 21st, would think it shouldn't be too unreasonable to expect a writer at the time to think, yeah, an independent rocket going up with that sort of thing probably isn't going to happen. In fact, many may question the morals of it.
Are you saying that someone in the 1990s wouldn't be sending up a rocket into space full of dead bodies?
I am suggesting that, and I'm also suggesting that generally you would probably know if your husband was likely to cryogenically freeze you. Or be aware that he had enough money hanging around the place. I'm also fairly certain if he had enough money to have you cryogenically frozen and then send you into space, you probably wouldn't need to take on such a title as a homemaker. That you could probably, and probably would, be paying someone to do that for you.
I wonder if Walt Disney is floating around space, waiting to be thawed out by the Enterprise crew.
Now that would have been an episode. Imagine that.
I understand that is the plot of Star Wars Episode 7.
In addition, this ship, it seems to be a satellite to me, has reached close to Romulan space without any kind of drive. It seems very strange to me that this thing should have drifted out of Earth's solar system at all. And right in the middle of the Alpha Quadrant somewhere, and it just happens to be passing a starship in all the vastness of space. Again, it didn't bother me at the time, but thinking about it afterwards, that slightly bothered me.
I'm going to have to stop you there. Romulan space is in the Beta Quadrant.
Well, I feel like a failure of a Star Trek fan.
It's okay, we'll just take you out and hang you after the episode. It's fine.
It's fine. I don't want to watch season 2 anyway.
Yeah, that's badly thought through, isn't it? We'll send the bodies up into space. Oh, and how are you going to stop them from drifting away? What? How are you going to stop them from just drifting out into deep space? We've got a rocket. But, I mean, if it's questionable how and why that satellite ends up there, it's equally questionable why they end up bringing them back. I mean, I get that they're using Data to do it, because Data would bring back dead bodies. But even then, I sort of think the way that Data's been set up, he probably wouldn't bring back people who are dead. I mean, it's the most questionable instance of tomb raiding I've seen since The Cradle of Life, and at least that had Chris Barry in it.
You see, this is one of the issues I had with the episode. Picard seemed to be angry with Data over him bringing them back, but I thought that's the right thing to do. These people, I mean, they're dead, but they're not dead, because they're still there, aren't they? No, I didn't plan to go into a Red Dwarf quote. It just happened.
It happens a lot, but you're right. Picard seems genuinely annoyed that Data has saved 3 lives. They were dead anyway. Yeah, they were dead anyway because they were going to burn up into a sun. But if there's a chance that they're still alive or can be revived, then indeed they are lives. And is that not what Picard is always saying, that there's nothing more precious than life?
Are they, though? Because, I mean, they are, by all rights, they are dead. They are just frozen corpses.
So if you've got an officer has just been attacked by some oil monster, and this officer is on the table, and this officer is dead. All the instruments say this officer is dead. Beverly shouldn't try and revive this officer.
Well, I think the whole thing of reviving people opens up very questionable doors for the series that they don't want to open, because it does raise those questions. You know, if it's simple enough to bring these people back, why haven't they done it before with other people? That's always the problem of just bringing in this kind of idea of, hey, we can cure death. Yeah, you might want to write that out of the plot quite quickly, because that has horrible consequences on a series.
But I think the point is that they died from things that in the future are easily curable. That's the point that they're getting at. It's not a matter of, oh, nobody dies in the future. It's just a matter of nobody dies from these 3 illnesses.
But I mean, it's not as if they are about to die and have the illnesses. I mean, if that was the case, then you would cure them. What they are doing there is curing the illnesses and bringing someone back to life.
I suppose the problem is that in a show about exploration in all its many variations, this is quite an interesting story. I mean, being frozen in time and then brought back, it's a science fiction staple, you know, from Buck Rogers to Red Dwarf or Futurama. It is a staple that is used over and over again, and it's quite interesting. But I think the main problem here is not so much the ethics of whether or not that they bring these people back, is that Picard comes across as a hugely unsympathetic character in this instance. And I suppose in some ways he is, and there's a mission to perform. But he does seem quite callous about loss of life.
To be honest, the main issue that I had, I think, was that there is an interesting episode to be done there with the ethics of bringing someone who has died centuries ago back to life. I think there is an interesting episode there and them dealing with it. The problem is, when you have that episode as the last episode of the series that then also decides that it wants to set something up, you never have a plot that's satisfying, really, because it kind of feels perfunctory. It's not being treated in the way that it should be. It should be more cerebral. And it's not, I mean, often it's played for laughs. It's very quick that we get past this thing of them being brought back. And then, although we have the thing of looking back at the family records and things, a lot of it's played down to just one man saying, "I want my money," and another one going, "Yeah, you fix me a martini." That's it.
How do you think these people react to their future world? I mean, they're put in boiler suits and sat in a room. There's... I don't know, is it a genuine reaction? There doesn't seem to be much wonder at actually being out in space on a giant spaceship that can magic things up from nowhere. Sure, they're traumatised, but if you were on this amazing, wonderful, carpeted spaceship, would you be like that bothered about your stock portfolio?
It seems like the character is a very thinly drawn one. Bizarrely, I can believe the country in Western Star a lot easier. Someone who just doesn't care as long as he's got some booze in his hand. The other two are not good, though.
At the very least, it is something different. It isn't the alien of the week, or they make no attempts to visit the planet Hellset at any point in this episode. So that's quite interesting. The problem is, this should have been the B-plot, but it is given far too much screen time, because it's like they can't really decide how to investigate the destruction of outposts in an interesting way.
No, I mean, in all honesty, this should have been an episode on its own, and it should have been a mid-season episode. Throw out some of the dead weight, and this should have been in there. And the drive of this episode should have been the return of the Romulans. Because what we actually end up with is them going through on this plot for quite some time with just travelling into the neutral zone. And then when they arrive at the neutral zone, it's almost as if the writer goes, "Oh shit, yeah, we were meant to be finishing the season, weren't we? A cliff. Oh no, it's a bit late for a cliffhanger. I'll just say we're here, and yeah, oh, that'll do. Yeah, it's setting something up. I mean, there are attempts. This whole thing of who's been blowing up the outposts. Yeah, little bit late to be throwing this all in at the last moment, really.
See, I think this episode would have been much better as one of the first. If not, replace Naked Now with this, because it's got characters from the near present who can almost be the audience's eyes and introduce this weird and wonderful world whereas it just kind of feels out of place here at the end.
And also the fact that quite a lot of this episode is being played for laughs. Which is weird. Hey, everyone you knew's dead. Ba-da-da-dum, ba-dum, bum, da. Great.
You're quite right, and there is always this element where you want someone to be the eyes of the audience, which in some ways we said Wesley Crusher early on, he's the 14-year-old Star Trek fan, so we're seeing the show through him. But actually, you can understand, you could have understood if very early on they had found a character from the 20th century and brought them in as a character. You could understand why they might do that and have them interject some point of view. It would have been really annoying and unnecessary, but you could understand why they might do it. Here, I'm not really sure what they contribute, as opposed to sort of suggesting that there's some flaw with the audience, that capitalism is bad and immature and somehow wrong, which seems very strange for a product which is primarily huge in America and made by a massive conglomeration.
And of course, they also established that TV did not last much beyond 2040. And as we all know, it all began with the cancellation of BBC Three.
So what do you guys do for fun around here? We all watch iPlayer. Because that's where all the content is now. Yeah, no one's watching traditional broadcast stations anymore. No. Can we ring the satire bell?
I do hate the idea that humans have evolved beyond the need for filling time and entertainment when in the future there is nothing to do. What is the holodeck? What are playing holonovels other than frittering away your time in a meaningless way? Would movies have disappeared? Would people just sitting and wanting to relax and switch their brain off have disappeared? No, now we better ourselves. What, you read? Everyone still reads. It's a form of entertainment. It doesn't necessarily mean because you're seeing words in front of your eyes, it's necessarily superior. Because let's be honest, Picard's great love of Dixon Hill ain't no high art.
It's demonstrably not true. I mean, as you say, they read books, as is evident from The Next Generation and the original series. I mean, Christ, if the original series and the films battered us with anything, it was all manner of literary quotes. And they play three-dimensional chess. What the hell is that? So, basically, the only form of arts that have disappeared are television and movies. I don't want to live in this future. This sounds horrible.
But they have the holodeck, so, they can, have fun there.
The very idea that exists and that TV and film don't seems antithetical to me.
And the thing is, they ask, what do you guys do for fun? No one says, oh, well, there's the holodeck, there's these books and maybe a game of chess. They just go, no, there's nothing. You bastards!
I would like to address also the security protocols on the Enterprise once again. We don't have any need for such things to protect our consoles with passwords. Everyone can communicate because we have self-control. Yeah, but you don't always have humans on the Enterprise. You sometimes mediate with some dodgy aliens. You have them on board. Sometimes you have people on board you don't necessarily trust, as was recently seen in the Klingon episode. So, to suggest that no security protocols are needed in any of the rooms and anyone can wander onto the bridge or into engineering seems beyond foolish to me. You should be able to have a console that can be remotely switched off. And if you're having 3 random strangers that you don't know anything about and don't really trust on your ship, why not keep someone with them at all times to babysit? I'm sure Councillor Troy could do that. She'd be perfectly suited for that, and it would give her something to do.
But why does it need to be the senior staff who take care of these 3 people? This is a ship full of families. There's children on this ship. So maybe there's a teacher. A teacher can go and talk to them about can teach them about the history of the future or something. Keep them interested. There are so many people on that ship who should be able to take care of them, keep them interested, stop them from faffing about. And yeah, we have just Riker popping in occasionally.
Which, of course, he's been doing throughout much of this series, in one form or another. Yeah, it's true. I mean, last week we saw an episode where parasitic life forms were taking over members of the crew. Now, that is something that you want to try and have something to stop. Really, people being controlled. It's happened several times. Your crew being taken over. It's probably, good to have some kind of measures in place. But apparently, no, they don't need anything, which makes me wonder why they even need such a large security team. I reckon that they could drop one of the members of the cast that are on the security team and no one would even notice.
Is Tasha even in this episode? I don't remember her having a line.
No, I mean, which makes it all the weirder. I mean, she was doing nothing. She could have stayed in that room. Just stood there, just slapping their hands out the way when they went for the comlink.
Eventually, the people in the future don't understand phrases from the past shtick. Just, it goes on way too long.
I mean, that was nice. That was good in Star Trek 4, and they milked it for all it was worth, and very effective. Here, the writing is perhaps not quite up to scratch with a movie. We can't forgive this. This was, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, time of the writer's strike, and this was a first draft.
I do wonder, though, if Star Trek 4 had an effect on this. I mean, it's not that long after the release of Star Trek 4, is it? And I can't help but wonder whether they were trying to capture a little bit of the magic there, thinking, well, that film was very successful. How about we do this in reverse? I mean, it might be entirely wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me.
There was some joy in seeing Star Trek characters with their different values interacting with 20th century humans, and I think that trying to replicate that is not a bad idea, and you do it in the role reversal way. But if that is what you're going to do, take an episode to do it, because the plots don't really gel. They don't really come together in any way. And I think they're both actually fairly decent plots in themselves. It does seem a very strange way to finish the season.
As we said before, this is 2 episodes that have just been rammed together, and they didn't need to be. Because, I mean, the thing is, we said before that Conspiracy is really the season closer. But to be honest, it didn't need to be. It could have been this episode if you'd played more with the Romulans. And let's be perfectly honest, you could have tied the end of Conspiracy into this. And made it into a 2-parter. You've got things being destroyed by an outside force. Okay, they have another plan in mind, but it would have been easy enough to just tie it back into what was in the previous episode, and it probably would have been more satisfying.
Let's talk a bit more about that. Outposts have been getting destroyed along the neutral zone. So the flagship with the A-Team, they're all being sent to investigate. That sounds fairly intriguing. We know that no one's heard from the Romulans in 50 years. Although, as I recall, in Angel 1 there seemed to be a fairly significant incident involving the Romulans, which was just brushed off as an odd C-plot.
I mean, it also relies somewhat on you having a sense of why the Romulans are dangerous. It's there in the script nominally, but not that much. It relies on you having some awareness from the original series. I don't know that that's sensible at the end of the series. If what you're doing is building up to this big moment when they're revealed, if I wasn't aware from the original series and the films, I would have just sat there and thought, so what? But are they a threat particularly?
Well, they do have a scene in which Troy informs Picard everything about the Romulans. And you just think Picard doesn't know about one of the biggest threats to the Federation.
Anything will be valuable, Counselor. And she just sort of goes, I've not actually done my homework. they're people of extremes. Sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're not. One day they'll wipe their shoes before coming into the house, another they'll spread mud all over the place. Crazy.
She's reading from the big pop-up book of Romulans.
That's the thing. You see, actually, I can tell you more about the Romulans if you want, Picard. I've got my Star Trek encyclopedia in front of me. It seems there was an opportunity there to educate people who don't know about Star Trek. You can say they were at war with Earth during this period. They had this incident with the original Enterprise, and Captain Kirk confronted them. But no, it's just laid out to us in the vaguest of vague terms.
It's that old problem that we've had before, isn't it? The show don't tell. You can convey all of this by telling us and saying, "Oh yes, the Romulans, terrible," and remember all those incidents. And also that is a problem. Just saying, "Oh, nothing's been heard of them since that terrible incident." What happened? What you need to tell me what's happening at the very least. It's saying nothing. It's bizarre behaviour, and even then, you can be told. It's like if you hear the numbers of people that have died in some atrocity, hearing the numbers doesn't register in quite the same way as seeing it. It just your brain doesn't really take it in. And the same, I've not seen any of the stuff they're talking about in this series, so it doesn't seem any more of a threat than anything else that I've seen. Certainly not enough for it to be this big, ominous event.
It almost seems the reveal of the Romulans is a bit like the reveal that everyone complained about in Star Trek Into Darkness, when Benedict Cumberbatch's character says, "I'm Khan," and all the crew go, "Ooh," when actually they should go, "Okay, you've got a different name than what we thought." And then you go, "It's the Romulans," and everyone goes, "Right, what do they do?" Go on. It is relying on foreknowledge or knowledge of the past, because they've still not really done anything to suggest that they're evil, other than saying at the very end, it's like, "Oh, we're back." Oh, why are you back? Where have you been? What have you been doing all this time? I suppose I'm interested, but what does that mean?
We had other matters. Wow, way to just brush that aside.
We do get to know a little bit more about Worf out of this, because he talks about how the Romulans killed his parents at Khitomer, which is something.
I would say that was quite unprofessional of Worf, though. In the middle of, I guess, not first contact situation, but certainly the beginnings of a what could be a diplomatic incident, sort of getting stroppy and saying, "You killed my parents. I'm a bit annoyed." Let the captain do the talking, unless you're specifically asked, I would say, in that kind of situation.
But he does say that the Romulans were supposed to be allies at the time, which doesn't make sense considering everything that happens after this, but that's what he says, which kind of justifies him making the point. If they were supposed to be allies and they attacked Khitomer, then it makes sense that he will point that out here.
I'll be honest, I find it hard to find the Romulans threatening, dressed like that and aboard such a terrible, terrible set.
Wouldn't you rather they'd been cloaked in darkness almost, and would have just seen them through the shade? Having a really brightly lit, horrible set fully exposed like that, it doesn't serve anybody well, and it doesn't really give you much of a sense of mystery either. It's just, yep, brightly lit, bad makeup, stupid outfit. Oh, I don't care.
But the Romulan warbird, that does look very good. That looks very threatening, and it's lit very well.
No argument. That is a lovely model, and I've got to say, throughout the season, the model work generally, the satellite at the start with them on board looks great. All that stuff looks great. The special effects are pretty excellent throughout, but sometimes other elements do let the show down.
Yeah, it's so often due to a combination of makeup and lighting. Set design in this case as well, yes, and obviously with the Planet Hell set. But I do think, as you say, if it had just been done much darker, that would have covered a lot of sin. You know, it seems so obvious. I mean, I realise that we're looking at it with hindsight, and you could say the same for things like Doctor Who. You look back at those 80s episodes with Peter Davis and you think, my God, why didn't they just use less lighting constantly? But it's true. It's doing no favours.
It was interesting that in the Next Generation film Generations, they make the bridge a lot darker.
I think it's worth mentioning, in these last 2 episodes, we've had the parasitic aliens as a big bad. Now, obviously, some other threat is being set up with the destruction of these bases, and also the reintroduction of the Romulans. All this is saying to me is that what was set up early in the season, the Ferengi, completely failed. They are gone now. Let us speak of them no more.
And there shall be no more Ferengi episodes in all of Star Trek.
It's a weird way to end your series, isn't it? Setting up one carryover big bad, yeah, no, I get that. To set up 3? You know, I'd understand it if it was just the Romulans, but then you've also got the parasitic aliens and whatever it is that's destroying the outposts. That's a lot of carryover.
It is rather, and it might suggest that the show's going down a more serialised route moving forward. Yeah, that's not necessarily where it's going to go, but maybe we'll get on to more of that kind of thing in Quickfire.
Quickfire.
So, the writer's strike came along, and originally this was going to be the first of a 3-parter where a new alien threat would be introduced in the first couple of episodes of Season 2. That didn't happen, and I think that would have been quite interesting and might have set a different template for Star Trek moving forward. What a shame we then got something completely different.
I want to talk about the music for a minute because we've not really discussed it too much in this series, but this episode has some of the most horrible use of music throughout. We've talked earlier about how this episode has at times been playing things for laughs, and it does it with music as well. It does it when, having been woken up, she looks up and sees Worf and then faints again, and you have the comedy noise. I mean, all it's missing is wah, wah, wah. But the worst instance of it is when you've got the country star who, every time he says something comical or leaves the scene, suddenly some music's played. Do you mind being stuck here? No, as long as I got a martini, I'm fine. What the hell's that about? What do we need him every time he says something? I mean, it's not even as if there's particularly some kind of joke. I mean, I might understand if it was being played as, well, what do you guys do for fun? Well, we don't have films, but we've got books. Huh? Oh, but I'm illiterate. Awful.
Will Wheaton didn't appear in this episode again, but he was originally scripted to appear in it, and we were deprived of a scene in which Wesley replicates a guitar for Sonny Clements, and Sonny asks Wesley about several genres of music, and I think we've really missed out on what would have been the best scene in all of Star Trek, if not the best scene in all of television. I can imagine it would have been Shakespearean in conception. It would have just been beyond comprehension. In fact, I think that's why they didn't use it in the end. It was just so brilliant. It would have made all other writers in the world look bad. So they had to say, we've got to drop the Wesley scene.
The 3 resurrected humans are dropped off on the USS Charleston, and they'll take several months to get back to Earth. The Enterprise went back to Earth in about 5 minutes in last week's episode. What's the USS Charleston doing, other than having a terrible name? And surely there are transports going back to Earth all the time. It's surely quite a significant part of the Federation. I don't know, it just seems pretty harsh to leave him in a starship for all that time.
Well, space is as big as is needed in the particular script.
Star Trek joke alert again for the second time in 2 weeks. Self-aware jokes where Worf walks up to a door and expects it to open and then Data uses a handle. That's good. Self-aware referential comedy. You would expect that almost in a parody of Star Trek. It's quite surprising to see it here.
It's been nice having them round. It's been like having a blast from the past. Wow, that was an appalling joke. Where they were from the past. Are you mad? Are you blind? No, sorry, that would be ridiculous.
Just a quick question for you, Alex. Did the ending of this episode intrigue you the most, or the cliffhanger ending to last week's episode?
Last week's episode. Absolutely last week's episode. This week's episode really just made me think, alright, fine, they're back. The other episode ends on, there's a big threat and it's coming. And this episode sort of ends on the same thing, except we haven't just spent an hour watching the Romulans do anything. And in fact, what we have seen is them saying, yeah, well, you know what, for the first time, we might share some information with you, because there's something else. Don't know what it is, and it's just destroyed some bases, but yeah, that's it.
I seem to remember they cut out a scene where the Romulans say, I seem to remember I saw a cube just in the distance.
Well, actually, saying that, if there was this was the last image transmitted from the outpost with some blurry cube or sphere on it, that might have been a bit more interesting. That might have created some intrigue.
Yeah, but there just isn't any intrigue. It's the kind of thing that we've had before where they've set it up and then just not followed up on it at all. So you just sort of think, oh, it's another one of those instances then.
Yeah, well, thank goodness they'll follow up both on the parasite conspiracy and on these outposts being destroyed then. Well, that's it. Season 1 is over. All 25 episodes done. We are gone. We are out of here. We're going to celebrate!
Well, we still have Season 2 to do, and Season 3, and Season 4, and Season 5, and there's a Season 6 as well. They also had Season 7, I believe. And they have four films.
Oh, God.
And they had a spin-off show called Deep Space Nine that ran for 7 seasons. And they had a spin-off show called Star Trek Voyager that ran for 7 seasons as well. And they had a prequel called Enterprise that ran for 4 seasons.
Time to wake up.
What's going on? Where am I?
Please remain calm. You might want to sit down.
I'm lying down. Who are you, anyway?
My name is Dr. Lazarus. You're in the Stasis Institute. You haven't just been asleep. Following your death, you were cryogenically frozen for almost 350 years.
I don't believe it. I have so many questions. Did they start work on Red Dwarf 11 yet?
Apparently it's coming at the end of the year. but there's nothing official yet.
Yeah, I've heard that before. And hang on, I died? I don't remember that. What happened?
Well, there was an incident. You had just watched the entire first season of Star Trek The Next Generation. It's understandable. It had that effect on many people. You left this note.
Hailing frequencies closed, sir.
Yes, clearly you had gone quite mad. But that's all in the past. You have work to do here now.
What work could I possibly have to do here?
Since your time, First Contact has grown in popularity. It has become the code by which we live our lives.
Oh, I get it. This is a joke, isn't it? Yeah, come on, guys. Yeah, good one.
This is no joke. Your return has been foretold. Many have gathered to see your resurrection. Come to the balcony.
I'm not sure I can imagine a more terrifying future.
But this is the future that you have shaped, and now it is time for the second coming. Will you do it? Will you write the New Testament? Will you come up with some contrived yet hilarious running jokes?
I guess. But I can't really do it without Andrew and James. I mean, they made some really valuable contributions. A little bit, anyway. I mean, mostly it was me, but sometimes one of them said something. I'm fairly sure they said something.
That has been accounted for.
You mean they were frozen too?
Well, kind of.
What do you mean?
Send in the clone.
Alex, this is James. We cloned him from a congealed snooze found at the First Contact Shrine in Liverpool.
Oh, it's good to see you, James. Well, this is all a bit weird, isn't it?
I only like the racist episodes.
Yes, I already know that.
I don't think they've mentioned it in the show before, but is Geordie blind?
Yes, you know he is. Of course he is. It was established really early on. We've been through this.
What you talking about, Wills?
Eh? Hang on. He's never said that before. What's wrong with him?
Well, we were unable to restore his memories, so we just programmed him with a bunch of catchphrases and hoped you wouldn't notice.
Keeps white at a price that's right.
Well, yeah, it's close enough, I suppose. What about Andrew? Is he a clone too?
No. We couldn't locate any of his DNA, which was surprising given what we found on his internet search history. So we used our best minds to build an Andrew droid.
Ah, you mean an android?
Oh, I see. That's clever, but no. Meet Andrew 2.0.
You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact.
That's incredible. If you hadn't told me, I don't think I'd have ever noticed there was a difference.
Nice to see you. Nice.
I'm glad you're all getting along so well. Now, shall we begin? Just 151 more episodes to go.
First Contact Season 2, coming soon.
Ish.
What a gay day.